It's the one that's on the bottom. We're good? Okay. All right. So if you're watching online, you missed the prayer. That's all you missed was a prayer. Prayer's important, but you haven't missed any of the study. We're in Ecclesiastes chapter 4 if you're online. So let's go back and read verse 1, 2, and 3 again. We did verse 1, 2, and 3 already, and let's try to get verse 4, 5, and 6 done tonight. Then I returned and considered all the oppression that is done under the sun, and look, the tears of the oppressed, but they have no comforter. On the side of their oppressors there is power, but they have no comforter. Therefore I praise the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still alive. Yet better than both is he who has never existed, who has not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. So that last little line there kind of leads us into what we're going to be talking about next in the next three verses. Verse 4, again, I saw that for all toil and every skillful work, a man is envied by his neighbor. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. The fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. Better a handful with quietness than both hands full together with toil and grasping for the wind. So we're starting to look at some different things here. We've saw in the first three verses the tragedy of oppression, about how oppression, we're all oppressed in this life, whether or not you're under the sun or whether or not you're with God. Either way, you're gonna face oppression. But now we begin to look at some bittersweet accomplishments. Bittersweet accomplishments in that as we become successful, what can happen is other people begin to envy our success. As others become successful, what can happen is we begin to envy their success. And the next two verses, verse 5 and 6, then says, okay, it's going to produce one or the other in you. Either you're going to be lazy or you're going to work too hard, one way or the other. And so this is kind of what he's talking about in these next few verses. He's talking about the uselessness of envy, how success often gains the envy of one's neighbor. And so envy, we know what envy is, right? Envy is the feeling of discontent. It's resentful longing aroused by somebody else's stuff or somebody else's qualities or somebody else's character. So if you ever looked at somebody else and you've kind of envied them, you think you look at an attribute that they have or a character that they have or a possession that they have or something they have, and you kind of go, boy, I wish I was like that. I wish I had what they had. Boy, I wish I was able to respond like they respond or act like they. We've all thought that at some time or another. There's people that we call it people that we admire, that we want to be like. On Monday nights, we would call it mentors. Who's been a mentor in your life that you want to emulate, that you want to replicate, that you want to imitate, that you want to be like. But sometimes we can take it too far, and it's not just, boy, I want to be like them, but it becomes an envy thing where we're envying them. And so he says again, when he says again, he's just rebuilding on thoughts that he's talked about before and continuing to branch out on those thoughts. We've talked about hard work before. We've talked about skillful work before. We've talked about how you can work too much and you end up with what? You end up with nothing. I mean, you might have everything in this world, but when it's all said and done, you end up with nothing. So we've talked about some of these things before, but now he's bringing in a different level to it, coming at a different angle, and that angle is envy. How when you're working hard, it might cause envy in somebody else, or how when somebody else is working hard, it might cause envy in you. It's kind of this thought process of, do you work hard because you're trying to please God, or do you work hard because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses? You remember that? So it's a saying. It's an old saying. We're trying to keep up with the Joneses. You know, you see what others have and you want to have it, so you're working hard to get that. You're not working hard for God anymore. You're working hard so that you can be successful. You're working hard so that you can have, so that you can get some of those things. And so he talks about the toil. The toil is hard work and labor. Now, is toil, hard work, and labor bad? Absolutely not. But it's got to be balanced. As we go through the next three verses, keep that word balanced in your mind, because it's not that hard work and toil are bad, and it's not that enjoying life is bad, but there's got to be balance in all of this thing. It's not just, okay, I'm going to work, and never enjoy life, because now you got two handfuls, but you got what? You got nothing. And it's not, well, okay, I'm going to just enjoy life and never work, because then what happens then? The second verse says you're doing what? You're destroying your own flesh, right? And so that's what we're kind of looking at in these verses here, these three verses. All that man labors for, all that man works hard for, all that he's doing by the skill that God has given him, that's the key. Okay? We've all got skills, right? We've all got skills that God has given us, but we've also have skills that maybe God has given us, but we, through trial and error, through experience, through training, we have done what? We've gotten better at it, right? And so all the labors, the hard work by the skill that God has given him and that he has developed over time, sometimes can be envied by others or neighbors, or we end up envying what others are doing. All of their hard work, all of their skillful labor. So we end up being envied by others, even as labor and skill ends up being hated. So how many of us, we look at somebody else that's worked hard to attain those things, not only do we envy them, but sometimes we begin to resent them. I work just as hard as they do. How come I don't have that? And then we get a little hateful, we get a little resentful towards other people because of these things. And so it becomes this: which one are you? Are you a hard worker, or are you one that is constantly envying others' hard work and what others have labored for? Jealousy of one another's success is nothing more than vanity and grasping for wind. Right? So when we begin to envy somebody else and want what they have, or want what they've worked for, or want those things, what is that want going to give you? Nothing, right? It's going to leave you empty, right? It's going to leave you disillusioned. It's going to leave you disappointed. All of those things. It's going to leave you grasping for the wind. It doesn't give you anything. So you have to go work hard, because envy don't bring you anything at all whatsoever. And plus, envy does not honor God. So, like, look at it. We're looking at somebody else that's worked hard. They either have stuff that we go, boy, I sure would like to have that. Boy, I sure would like to live in that kind of house. Sure would like to drive that kind of car. Sure would like to wear those kind of clothes. Or they have qualities and characteristics. Man, I sure would like to be a peaceful person. I sure would like to drive without yelling at everybody. I sure would like to just have that great spiritual faith that they have. Whatever the envy is, we begin to envy them. And when we envy them, we're putting the focus on who? Them. Which means if we're putting the focus on them, where are we not putting the focus? On God. We're supposed to be putting the focus on God, church. And so when we envy, it does not honor God. So when we look at other people's lives and we have that motive of envy, we're looking at them. We're not looking at the God who has blessed them, or the God that they're working for, the God that they're serving, or any of those things. Now, sometimes people are not working for God. Right? That's certainly a layer in this. But we want to honor God. When we do that, we're not honoring God. We're not bringing him glory, nor are we leading others to seek God. So the one who envies does not honor God, right? Nor does the one who works hard in order to be envied. Is that a human trait? I'm going to work so hard that when everybody looks at me, they'll know that I'm somebody and I made something of myself, right? How does that bring God glory? How does that bring God honor? So you've got the one who's envying is not honoring God, nor the one who works hard in order to be envied. I'm not talking about the one who works hard to bring God glory. There's a difference. Everybody understand? There's a difference. There's a difference in working hard to be known as a hard worker and working hard to point people to Jesus and to bring glory to God and to honor God in all these things. Work hard, yes, but always for God, always for God's glory, never for yours. So, like I just said a little minute ago, it's a very humbling experience to be working at Chick-fil-A now with these young kids. These young kids are running circles around me. David, you were somewhat right. Now, I'm still kind of spry. So, I can still do work with some of them, but these young kids, it's a humbling experience to have them running circles around me on some of these things. But they're working, and not all of them, because I don't know their hearts, I don't know their spirits, but some of them are working just because mom and daddy said, you got to go get a job. Now, a whole bunch of them I know are going to college, and so they're on college break right now, and a whole bunch of them are just finishing up this week, and they're heading back to college. I met one that was going to ECU, one that's going to Chapel Hill. All of these kids get ready to go back. So we've got to be working for God and His glory. So when I'm there, if I get pulled into, I want to show these kids that a 53-year-old man can still do it. I'm going to fall flat on my face. But if I can go in there and go, you know what? I may not be as fast as them pushing those buttons. I may not be as quick as them making those ice creams and those desserts or taking those customer orders or cleaning the bathrooms or doing all those things. I may not be able to do it as quick as them. But if I can go in there and do it for the glory of God, for the customers and for them, that's good, right? But I'm telling you, there is that to go. I want to show you. We've got to work for God and for His glory, not for our glory. How many times have we done something in any area and we did it because we want to be recognized? Yeah, we've all done it before, right? We've all done things before where maybe we started off, okay, I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do. But somewhere along the line, there comes this thought, I also want to see if anybody notices that I did it. I mean, we've all done that before and done that. Whose glory are we in this for? Right? So the one who works hard under the sun. So what's under the sun? Without God. So the one who works hard under the sun to exalt self or to simply gain only ends up producing envy from others at his own self-exaltation. We don't want to work like that, do we? We want to work in such a way that when we work and do things, all glory goes to God. That people want to be like God, that people see God, that people honor God, that people lift up God. Not that they look at us and how good we're doing. Oh, I want to be like you. I want to be able to do it like you do it. Okay? So such a life that is that person who's working hard under the sun to exalt self or to simply gain, it exalts man and it makes others wish and desire to be like one another and to have and accomplish what one another has and accomplished instead of pointing to God. I know we don't think about this sometimes, but how we're living our day-to-day life matters. Everything that we do. I mean, every single thing that we do, it matters, and there are people watching, and it's either exalting God or it's exalting ourselves, one way or the other. And we don't want to leave God out, because when we leave God out, it leads men to seek what other men have rather than seeking God for all things. So we want to glorify God in all things. We want to exalt Him, not ourselves. Why? Because God is our source, isn't He? God's our source, y'all. God is our source always and at all times in all things. And so if God, you got to think about this from both sides. You got to think about this as the one who's working, but you got to think about this as the one who's seeing others work. So you got to be dual mind focused on this. We are not to look at others and what they have or what they've accomplished. We can't desire those things, to have them, to be like them. Don't envy others ever. Don't fall into that trap. Don't begin to fall into that trap and even looking at people in their spiritual life and going, oh, I want to be like them. Don't fall into that trap. They're the only them. Only they can be who they are. You can't be a carbon copy of them, right? Now, some of the traits, some of the characteristics, okay, maybe we want to be a more loving person, more praying person, more sincere person, not so mean and nasty, whatever the case may be. But you can't be like them. You got to be like who God wants you to be. Don't ever envy others. Put all of your heart's desire on God and put it towards God. This is what we're supposed to be doing. All that they have and are is because of who? It's because of God. Even if they're under the sun, even if they're without God, who's the one that's allowed them? The sovereign Lord over all. Because even if they're without God and God doesn't want them to have and God doesn't want them to work and God doesn't want them to store and all those things, what is God able to do? He's able to take it all, right? Remember the guy that's building, got all this stuff, and he's looking out and he's going, oh my gosh, look at all I've accomplished in life. Man, this is awesome. Look at all these stuff. You know what I should do? I should build bigger barns. I should build bigger, erect bigger buildings to show how great I am. And what happens to him? Well, he dies. Now, he dies, doesn't he? The dude laying at the gate that's got squat, right? Don't have anything. What happens to him? Oh, he's blessed. He's exalted. And the other one's pulled down. We've got to be careful. All that we have, all that they have and are is because of God. So don't envy others. Instead, seek God. Depend solely upon God. Trust completely in God. Because listen, church, we all desperately need God. There's not a single one of us that don't need God. And just the moment you think that you don't need God, and just the moment you think you've reached that level and you begin to reach that plateau is when the bottom falls out. And everything goes away and all you've got is God. All glory goes to God. All the focus, every desire, all eyes on Him. Our lives are meant to exalt God. Our lives are meant to witness to God's greatness, not our greatness. Our lives are meant to witness to His ability to provide and bless, not our ability to provide and bless. Look what I have provided. Look what I have made. It's like that guy when he went on the movie where he makes the fire and he's on the island, he's been, look what I've done. Fire. Huh? Castaway, that too. I don't like him, but the movie, okay. Look what we have done. It's not about our ability to provide, right? Our lives should point people to God's greatness, never our own greatness. Now, we're human. I don't know anybody in here that's not human. So when we have a tendency to do something well, there is a little tendency to puff our chest out, get a little hitch in our step. Yeah. Y'all see what I did? Yeah. Hold on, I'm going to break my arm. Right? There is that tendency within us to do that. And so we've got to be careful that we're not doing this. So our lives should point people to God's greatness, never own, and this includes our toil and our skillful work. So even your hard labor and that which you've gone to school and studied and worked hard to learn, to be able to do, and you should be able to put your diploma up on a wall and do those things. And I earned that, I worked for that, but it was only by the grace of God, and it's only by the grace of God that I'm still able to do these things. And God's the one, God's the provider, God's the my sufficiency is of God. And so we've got to remember that. We've got to continue to point our lives in that direction. If our lives are producing envy in others, where they want what we have and they want what we've accomplished, rather than who has blessed us and provided all things for us, then everything we're doing is vanity and grasping for the wind. It's empty, right? If our lives are producing envy, and you say, well, I can't control what they're doing. I get that, But if we're doing it for the glory of God, are you telling me God's not going to get glory out of it? So sometimes we go, well, if it's producing envy, I need to check myself. Maybe there's some self that's risen up in this. Maybe there's some self-exaltation. Maybe there's some pride that's risen up in this. Maybe I begin to take credit for the things that God has been doing somewhere along the way, because if it's producing envy in this, because understand this, God has designed you to bear fruit. And when you're glorifying God and honoring God, God's going to bear fruit. That fruit goes out and ministers to other people, and that fruit never comes back to you for credit. It always goes to God for credit, right? This is when we do this, we miss the whole point of life. We don't want to be empty. We don't want to be grasping for the wind. So success can lead others to envy. Success in others can lead us to envy. But then you got these other two extremes that can come into play also, and that's either the extreme of being lazy or the extreme of being a workaholic, right? And so we want to find a balanced life with and in Christ. And so verse 5 says, the fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. In other words, those that get jealous of others and envy them can fall prey to laziness. So how could that happen? So we look at the success of others and we see all that they've attained and all that they've accomplished and all the personality traits and all those things. And how could that end up leading to laziness? If I look at that and go, I can never do that. Well, I've tried and it's not working. So what happens when you try and it doesn't work after a while? You give up. There's sometimes you can't give up. So Cherie had a flat tire Sunday. I'm going to tell the whole story, but I'm going to tell some of it. The whole story is between me and Cherie and God. And it's under the blood. But she had a flat tire, and so on the way home from the restaurant, we stopped, and when I buy one of them tire changing kits, I'm thinking, okay, I've seen Henry Wood do this to this tire, one of these tires before. I feel like I can do this. This should be easy. So Greg mentions that you're going to take the tire off, and Dennis Iker mentions, well, if you can turn it just right and get it just right, you might not have to take it off. I don't know about you. If I don't have to jack the car up, take the tire off, I'm going to do it that way. You know who Dennis Iker gave the credit of doing that? Henry Wood. That's what Henry Wood does. So I go in and I find where the thing is. We go home, change clothes. I find where the thing is. I go, hey, I think I can do it. Just turn the tire. So I turn the tire, do that, pull it out. It's okay. Open up the thing. I stick the first piece in, Mr. Henry, and you got to put it in and out and turn it and twist it and to rough it up again, right? To rough up the hole again. That part, perfect. There's a reason why I'm going here. I just forgot, but I'll find it when I look back at my notes. That part, perfect. It's great. No problem. I put the little black piece that's the plug. I put it through the thing. I put the glue on it or whatever the white stuff is on it. I go to stick it in the hole. It goes in about just the tiniest little bit. It won't go no further. I'm going, I'm not strong enough to push this thing through this hole. This is going to tear me up. Sweat is developing. I'm sweating everywhere now. I'm flipping out. I'm getting a little hot. Not just temperature-wise, but anger-wise. I'm pushing as hard as I can, and Cherie's trying to hold the car. And I'm looking at her going, having a Henry and Mary moment. What are you doing? I'm trying to keep the car from moving. It ain't moving. Well, I was trying. I'm getting a hammer and trying to hammer it, and all that's doing is making it go this way. I pull that one out, put it over on the trash can, get the first tool. I'm going to make this hole bigger. I probably tried for 15 minutes, and finally, I guess Cherie had started praying by that point. This is where it's awesome to have a good, godly wife. Because I'm blowing it and getting angry, and she's getting sanctified and holy over there. Lord, bless this evil man of mine and help him to get strength to push it in. Finally, get it and push it in. And where was I going with this? Those that get jealous of others and envy them can fall prey to laziness. There was a point, I promise you, at the beginning of that story. If it was not giving up, okay, y'all found the point. It's not giving up. My point was I need to be sanctified again. That was my point. Yes, it's fixed. It's sitting out in the parking lot right now. Oh, yes, I fixed it. The plug held. That's like the anchor holds. The anchor holds. The plug held in spite of the idiot putting it in. You can't give up. You say, I can't ever do it like they do it. You can't give up. You got to keep persevering. You've got to keep pressing on. You can't just fold your hands and just give up and throw in the towel, say, I'll never make it. I'll never be able to do it. I can't plug a tire like Henry. I can't plug a tire like Greg. I can't plug a tire like Pool's Garage does. But I didn't want to drive to Pool's Garage. So 20 minutes in the garage of sweating and fussing and watching Cherie trying to hold a car from moving. Yo, it was great. She's trying because she knows how irritated I get when she don't try to do something. And so the woman's up against the car going, and I'm pushing on it going, what are you doing? But I persevered by the grace of God and through her prayers. And it eventually went, and I was like, oh, hallelujah. I told her, I said, if it was that hard to get it in, how am I supposed to just pull it out in one quick? Because the directions say, once you pull it in, don't twist it. Just pull it out quickly. Make it go in quickly. It doesn't go in quickly. Don't give up. Don't give up thinking. You look at what others do. Don't give up when you don't think that you can do it. Thinking, but people do that. They get jealous, thinking they can never attain to your success, or that you'll never attain to their success. You're not supposed to do it like them. Who's our example? Jesus. Is anybody going to do it like Jesus? No, but we're all supposed to be trying to do it like Jesus, right? And so instead of seeking God and living for God and living under His favor through obedience, these people that get disillusioned, I can't do what they're doing, they become lazy and they fold their hands and they do nothing and they basically quit altogether. Why? Why do they become lazy? Sometimes because they want the success of others without the toil and hard work that others put into it. Right? Like, for instance, I would love to be able to walk over to that piano and be able to play it. But I don't want to have to put in the years that Linda put in. I'd rather just fuss at her and tell her she's doing it wrong. You played the wrong note. I know I played the wrong note. But they'll never know it if you quit telling them. Why do people become lazy? Because they want the success without the toil and hard work. They want an easy life. We live in a world where people want to let others do the work and you reap the rewards. It doesn't work like that, right? And so the envious man can fall into the trap and can become a lazy man if he's not careful. So when God tells us not to be envious, it's not that He's just trying to keep something from us. He's trying to protect us from something. You don't need to be envious of others. Because if you do it too much, it might disillusion you and you're not getting what they're getting and you might become lazy. So the first man works hard and skillfully labors only to be envied by others. The second does little to nothing. And the Bible says that what he does is he destroys his own flesh. He brings ruin upon himself by not working hard and seeking God. Life is about more than being successful in the eyes of others, though. How many of us, if we're honest, care what other people think about us? If we're honest, there's not a person in here that to some extent does not care what other people think. Now, we put on a rough exterior sometimes. I don't care what they think about me. You lay your head on the pillow at night, you care. Everybody cares a little bit. Now, it may be someone in your life that there's so much stuff evolved around that you've got to the point where you have Joyce Blackman them. That just means that they're dead to her. Just kidding. My mom's sweet. But don't cross her. But life is about more than just being successful in the eyes of others. But life must not be lived lazily either. To do so is to bring about one's own ruin and destruction. And so you got to figure out, okay, which life are you living? There's a balance in life. Work hard, yes, to the glory of God and be dependent upon God, but we've got to learn how to do it in moderation, which what the next verse leads to live it in moderation, again, giving God all the glory, but then enjoying God and all the work done in life by His grace and mercy. Oh, to be able to get to the place where I'm not working for the man, I'm working for the man, God. And work doesn't run my life. Work is just a part of my life to bring glory and honor to God. But I'm not going to work to try to have all these things. I'm going to be content with God and with what He's given me. We live in America. Not many people are content, right? You start down in the little house as a young couple, and then what's the thing? The whole thing is, okay, you should work enough. You should start getting enough that you get kids. You should move into a bigger house. You should move into a bigger house and a bigger house. You should get in this hoopty-doopy car to another car and to another car and to another car, right? Tell me that's not the American dream. That's what people think the American dream is. Life is more than that. So he says in verse 6, better a handful with quietness. So what is he saying? I'm going to work, not for 2 hands worth, but for 1 hand's worth. Better a handful with quietness, with peace, with joy, to enjoy life, to enjoy your kids when you, because something I wished I would have listened to a lot more from all you old people when I first got here. I wished I would have listened to all you old people a little bit more. And I wished I would have slowed down and enjoyed my kids when they were young a little bit more. Because now they're living their own life, right? They're living their own life. But to be able to have a handful with quietness, then both hands full together with toil and grasping for the wind. And so the handful with quietness is the balance from the guy before that folds his hands and destroys his home to the guy that has both hands of toil who ends up nothing. So let's finish this and we'll go home. It's the lazy versus the work. How to seek balance in this life. We've got to have hard work for God, but learn how to be with God. We're going to do hard work, God, but it's going to be for you. But then we're going to be content with you, not with trying to get more and more and more. So what does this mean to seek balance in this life? What does it look like? You work hard with the Lord. You depend upon Him. You live in His will. You are daily provided with all of His provision, and always everything that you do is for His glory and to point to Him. You're to not be lazy, expecting God to do everything for you while you sit idly by. Right? Scripture does. There's nothing worse than a lazy believer that won't do nothing. How much they love God and how much, but anything. They're not serving. They're not really working. They just do their night. That's it. That's it. So we want to be lazy, expect God to do for you while you sit idly by, waiting, inactive, because this only brings destruction and emptiness upon yourself. So you work too much, what do you got? Emptiness. You don't work at all, what do you got? Emptiness. But also don't work so hard that you miss out on enjoying this life. I think we get so chewed up about things sometimes. Don't we, Joyce? Don't we, Bronna? Bronna gave us an example tonight of just a little thing. Let me pull my spoon out or fork out so I can eat. Mark the rescue. Hey, guess what? You mean you didn't have to flip out over a spork that dropped? There are other sporks in the building. Don't we all do this? It's good that we can laugh at ourselves. We give ourselves all these examples all the time if we'll just stop, slow down, and think about them, right? It's so to see them in somebody else, though. But most of the time up here, I point them out in me. 75% of the time. Maybe 25% I point out y'all. Easy. So there's a balance between working hard and being lazy and working too hard. So we're talking about this balance between these things. So we don't want to miss out on this life. We want to live for God and live with God. We don't want to be one that's left grasping for the wind. All work with no enjoyment makes people, grumpy, miserable, hard to live with. Right? It does. I don't want to be like that. Especially now in this season of my life. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to go into this new season of my life and be miserable. We want to be happy in this new season. We don't just be happy. Dave says, and she'll be happy. So work hard. Look, work hard, depending upon God for everything, and always give Him the glory, but enjoy God. Enjoy life. Enjoy the life God's given. You only get one. That's why I love everybody being here on Wednesday night. Absolutely. What I love, if you're not here on Wednesday night, that you would at least watch on Wednesday night. I sure would. I think it's important. But you know what? If something comes up with your family, enjoy it. Because you only get that one time. If somebody in our church is off enjoying something with their family, don't you look at them and go, let them enjoy it. Because they can't go backwards and do it again once it's passed. Right? Well, they need to be living for God. Yeah, need to be enjoying life too. There's a balance. There's a balance. Time to smell the roses. So working should be done to meet God's goals for our lives and not to meet the standards set by our neighbors. Now, I'll be real honest with you. For the longest time, and I probably still think this way a lot of times, I look at y'all's lives sometimes and I go, you're not doing what I want you to do. I'm just telling you. From the pastor's standpoint, I look and I go, y'all ain't doing what I think you ought to be doing. Guess what? You're not supposed to be living your life for me. But there's probably been times where I've lived my life and y'all going, you're not doing what I think you ought to be doing. Right back at you. But now we are supposed to be living this thing together. And so you know what? When somebody is successful in something, celebrate it. Don't be envious. That's not the way I did it. That's not the way I was. Celebrate. Are you laughing at me? Look, who are you working for? Are you working for God or are you working for the envy of others? Envy may make you work too hard, so you got to be careful. 3 things. Hard work and success are good and not to be envied. If you struggle with do you struggle with envy or do you envy the success of others? I just said it. Celebrate the success of others. Always acknowledging their hard work, but also that God's blessing and provision is on their life. Don't look at it. Why are you giving it to them and not me? Thank you, God, that you're blessing them and they're getting to enjoy that. That's hard, ain't it? Okay, maybe it's just me. Anything good from their labor is from God, so always glorify God. Number 2, laziness is wrong and destructive. The opposite extreme. It's dangerous. Life is a gift from God and should be lived to the fullest. For God and with God. Each moment is an opportunity to live for God. Each moment is an opportunity to enjoy God, to work for God, to work with God, to serve Him, to point others to God. So you can't be lazy. God has a purpose for your life, for you to live it for Him. So in every success and all of your life, you're pointing others to God and you're bringing Him glory. See, life is meant to produce life. Your life that you live, your work, your toil, all of it is meant to produce life in others in Jesus Christ. Not death and destruction because they're either envious or lazy. And then third thing, yet even one with full hands must learn how to be content. Maybe your hands are too full. Maybe you were grasping too hard to things, and rather than you letting go of one, God says, we're going to you're going to let go of both for a little while. You're going to learn how to be content in God and with God. Don't be a workaholic because life is about more than just success. It's more than just getting and having. Life is a balance between working for and with God and enjoying life with God. It's a balance between being lazy and being a workaholic. It's a balance between being successful and others envying you or you envying them, and a life of success that clearly points others to God as the reason for every success and every achievement in your life. Your life is doing one or the other. Either your life is pointing people to God as the reason, or it's causing envy in others, or your life is looking at others and you've got envy, or your life is looking at others and celebrating and making you just want to serve God and love God even more. Now, which life are you living? Which life are you living? All right, verses 7 to 8, we're going to move into the next thing in the next couple of verses, verses 7 to 8. Uselessness in being alone. This is not what you think it's going to be. But useless in being wrong. So read verses 7 and 8, and we'll get to in the next little bit. All right, I'm done.